So Tearfund, we're a Christian relief and development agency, and the reason we're here is because of the communities we're working with around the world. 400 communities across Africa, Asia, Latin America are seeing the direct impacts of climate change as these people who've done the least to cause it, the poorest people in our world, the most vulnerable people in our world, getting hit first and hardest by climate change.
Okay. Would you say that your organization and your action are different than others' organizations because it's related to your faith?
Well, we believe as Christians that God created the world and that He gave it to us to use the resources, but we have abused that, and we're seeing the impact of that on the poorest people around the world. And that's a very strong and powerful motivator for us and our supporters who are engaged in that. So just last year I was in Bangladesh talking to some of our communities that we're working with, and I met a lady called Arundhata who could show me where her 3 or 4 previous homes were that had gone underwater as sea level had risen, and gradually her home had moved further and further back. And she's one of the most empowered ladies I ever met, because she was telling me, we don't need your help, we can develop by ourselves, we want to do this by ourselves. But she was saying the only thing we do need is solid ground beneath our feet. We need dry land. And it stuck in my mind, because when we had this conversation, the water was lapping round our knees as in her home. So it's for ladies like Arundhata why it's so important that world leaders at COP agree a really good deal to keep climate change under control.
Okay, and here in COP21, what are you doing? Are you bringing a report with you? Are you planning some side events to show your action and the wave of faith in climate change? And
we've been engaging our supporters in the UK and in many countries around the world to put pressure on their world leaders. Many of them were out on the streets last weekend showing the world leaders who are here just how important this issue is and how much they care about it. And that groundswell of bottom-up opinion from churches and Christians around the world, and let's remember the church is the largest civil society organisation in the world, can really bring about huge pressure on governments. So that popular pressure from churches is really key. But also we've been pushing this concept of a restorative economy, that at the moment we have an economy that's lifted lots of people out of poverty, but has done that based on a use of a lot of fossil fuels and extreme consumption of limited resources. And actually we still need healthy economies, but in future we need them to be driven by clean, renewable energy and to use a circular economic model so that we're not wasting resources. And we believe there's a lot going back to the Old Testament teaching, the Bible, of Jubilee and Sabbath and allowing the land to rest and be restored. There's an awful lot that it can teach us that we can apply in our world today.
Okay, and what are your expectations about COP21 negotiations?
So we think what's really important is the commitments that nations already put on the table before they came here to reduce their own emissions, which together add up to something like a growth in 2.7 degrees of pre-industrial norm of global average temperature. Now that's a start. It's nowhere near as far as we need to be, because we need to get down to 1.5 degrees to limit the most extreme impacts of climate change. But it's a good start. So we need to make sure that we get a deal agreed here in Paris that locks that in. But that's only the first point. The second is we need to build on that and see it increase. So by 2050 we need to get to 100% renewable energy, and that means we need a ratchet mechanism so that we can review the commitments that are made here in Paris and continue to increase them till they too get us down to that 1.5 degree level. And finally we need the money on the table, so that the very poorest people in the poorest countries in the world that did the least to cause climate change and are being hit most by it and have the least capacity to adapt their economies to it, get the support from the wealthy nations that they need. So that means $100 billion a year, every year from 2020.
Okay, so to conclude, would you say that the most developed country have a duty to the poorest country of the world?
They certainly do. We need to see world leaders and the richest nations in our world going first and setting a moral example. We need every nation in the world to take action, but those that have the greatest capacity to take action should certainly lead the way, and then be generous with the finest to help others come along that way as well.
Thank you very much for your answer and for your time.